Well, what's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and I just want to do this little awesome video, pretty much going over my entire PlayStation experience 2017. Now, this is just going to be a complete rundown of what I did Saturday and Sunday, and maybe even a little details the night before in terms of how to prepare for something like this. But I just want to say this. Overall, PlayStation experience, the event and actually going there was absolutely a step in the right direction. It was definitely a lot better in terms of actually going there than it was last year. However, there were a couple of elements that were seriously lacking this year that happened last year that I think that they should have included, because I think it made the event less special and, to be honest, a little bit disappointing. This was absolutely most present in the opening conference that they had the night before, where I really thought that they were going to have some sort of conference that would announce some new games or show some new gameplay, and instead all they had was a bunch of the developers of games for games that were coming out simply just talk. And although the idea sounds cool, the fact that they literally had no announcements. We didn't see any new gameplay. We didn't get any release dates. Nothing. I think was really disappointing. And it's even worse because a lot of those developers that they had in that really long lineup, apparently they weren't. I don't think many of them were there for the actual event itself over those 2 days, because there was an area of the convention center where you would actually get to meet and have autographs signed, but I think only for 2 of the games they did that for. I think everyone there might have been there, but you know, they weren't available, so I thought that was a little bit disappointing. So starting off real simple with the first day, which would be Saturday, I left my motel room at about 7 o'clock in the morning, which was good. And the line actually wasn't that bad by the time I got there. It took me about 30 minutes to walk there, and I have to say, by far, the organizers listened to what happened last year. They got their stuff together. It was a lot more organized and easier to get around. They actually had lines on the ground, and my spot in line was actually in the middle section of the primary line going to the convention center. So I did a much better job coming in early. And it was really easy. You could tell where your spot was. It lined around this fountain, and it, went up one side of the building, went around this fountain, and went aside another one, went, further down towards the main parking lot area. It was incredibly organized, made it very easy to get in. So kudos there. When you actually got into the building itself, the first thing you would see was this just major display of the PlayStation symbols, the triangle, the square, the circle, and the X. Really cool display, and had PlayStation right at the top. And the first booth that I went to was to play Detroit Become Human. Now it was absolutely cool. Now the booth was separated into 2 different areas. You had this one section on the left, which pretty much had all these people that were cosplayed as androids, and I guess the entire time they actually acted like androids. They would walk. They didn't talk. I don't think they talked as much, but they had no expressions. I think a couple people tried to scare them, and it didn't work. So I mean, those guys are really professionals. They absolutely sold, and the cosplays looked amazing. Now the actual demo itself was pretty much just the demo that we had seen before, where you have Connor trying to handle the hostage situation, and I was able to get that easily handled my first try. I knew exactly what buttons to press. I knew what questions to answer, simply because I'm very familiar with Quantum Dreams' type of gameplay style, and it reminds me a lot of playing Heavy Rain. So I was able to get that done. Now here's the only downside about that. Not so much the game, but in terms of demos for games that are coming out next year. Out of all the games that I played for games coming out, hopefully in the next year, that was the only one that was available. There were tons of really cool booths to look at, but their games just weren't available. By far, my favorite booth visually that I saw there was for Days Gone. I went to this booth at least 3 or 4 times. It is very detailed. It's like pretty much this dirt yard. They actually put real dirt on the ground. They had like a crash truck here. They apparently had a bunch of zombies that were trapped behind this fence, and you could actually interact with the zombies. And they even had this one display that had these dead bodies hanging. It was really cool. But sadly, you could not play Days Gone. I was actually a bit surprised, and this was something I thought was really upsetting. A lot of these newer games did not have displays, and I think that if we're going to go through the trouble of going to this convention and, you know, leaving our homes, taking days off, spending like $300 on my motel, and then waiting in line, I would like to get my hands on some sort of demo. And for a lot of these games, they didn't have that. And I really thought that was disappointing. And they did the same thing with God of War. The God of War booth was cool, but all it was that you would go in this group, you would get in line for this group, and they would simply walk you through these corners in this building, and it would just show you pictures about this story that happened with Kratos' son, and that was it. And then if you wanted to, there was this area on the side where you could actually get your face painted like Kratos, and you could actually have your hair cut off, which I didn't have to worry about. And you could actually take a picture in this boat holding either, you know, holding Kratos' axe, which was cool, but I decided I didn't want to do that. So continuing on going around, one of the biggest problems I think I had overall was that something that they did this year was to get into a lot of these demos, to test these games, you actually had to download an app and get a reservation. And that has a positive and negative benefit to it. The positive of that is that you don't have to wait in line, because, you know, there's a lot of lines to a lot of games, so you're going to be in line for a very long time. So having these reservations allows you to simply go in at the time that you set that you want to play this game. The problem is that there were so many people there that each specific reservation area was locked at specific times, and the second that it became open, they immediately filled up. There were just so many people that need to make a reservation, and so a lot of these games I could not play because I could not get a reservation. I'm not sure if there was like an easier way you could have done this other than the PlayStation Experience app that you had to download, but it made it kind of frustrating, because there were definitely a lot of games there that I wanted to try out that I could not play because I was unable to get a reservation. They went out like the second they were available. They immediately went out. It was like one giant eBay auction, and there were thousands of people getting ready to set a reservation. So I didn't really enjoy it that much. Now, there were a lot of indie games, and those are really a majority of the games that you could play. There were tons of indie games that use VR, and I'm not really a big VR person, but I think I tried out maybe 1 or 2 games. There were a lot of like 2D type of platformer games. There was this one game that I saw that was kind of like a carbon copy of Super Smash Brothers or PlayStation All-Star. I thought that was pretty cool. There was a really cool Gran Turismo display that had like all these cars that were really cool, but again, that was pretty much all reserved out, and it used VR, and I personally was not a fan of VR. I tested it out last year for the first time, and I'm still not a fan of VR, but if there was one game I would have wanted to try it for, it would be Gran Turismo, even though I personally am not a Gran Turismo fan myself. And there were just all these really cool displays in these booths. I think Monster Hunter had this like gigantic dragon that I passed by like several times, got like tons of video for, and took tons of pictures and posted them on Instagram. There was this one other display that was actually at PlayStation Experience last year of this gigantic like spider-like creature for a game called, I believe, Farpoint. That was also like a VR shooter game that I unfortunately was unable to try out. There was also Shadow of the Colossus, which I did get a chance to play. It was a little bit frustrating because in the demo they put you to the trouble if you actually had to find the Colossus, and I think that wasted a lot of time. I would have preferred that you pick the Colossus that you want to fight, and then you're just automatically thrown into battle. I would have preferred that. And they had this really cool display where you actually got to climb on top of the Colossus, and you got to put this sword down, and they would take a picture of it. They're really cool booths, but a lot of them, again, they did not have games to play, and this was the same thing for something like Spider-Man also. Spider-Man had like 3 different displays that you could take pictures for, and I was able to take a, you know, a really cool one. But again, I would have liked to have played Spider-Man. There was also, they also brought back the gigantic PlayStation like wall that had the symbols that you could write your name on. And surprisingly, even by the end of the actual convention itself, my name was actually still pretty much there. You could actually, it actually stood out a bit. So I'm glad I actually made my name, or my 3TR was here, here writing pretty big. One thing that, you know, is an absolute must if you do go to a PlayStation Experience convention is you have to check out the PlayStation Gear store. It's absolutely worth it. However, let me give you a little bit of advice of exactly how to handle this. You never ever want to go the first day. It is absolutely horrible. I made that mistake this year. I was in line for at least 2 to 3 hours. I mean, that's where I picked up this shirt and a bunch of other stuff, which I'm gonna leave a link to that video if you want to see what I picked up at the PlayStation Gear store. And I was also very limited because I was flying and there was a lot of things I wanted to get, but I knew could not fit in my suitcase, or I wasn't sure if the airport security was gonna let me they were gonna let me take it, because there was this giant Kratos axe I wanted to get that really wasn't all that expensive, but I'm not sure if that would have gotten through, you know, airport security. So I don't know, maybe I'll do something next year for that. Another thing that they also brought back that was from last year were these cards. And when you go to each booth that you go to, you're given these cards, and you're supposed to scan them with your PlayStation app. And there were also these barcodes that they had, and once you scan the barcodes, you got like a special gift. Like they were giving away dynamic themes, or they were giving away DLC content codes, and I got a good amount of them. I think the best dynamic theme that I picked up was when I actually collected, I think like one of the cards itself, and it was basically an exclusive PlayStation Experience dynamic theme. I'm not sure if I'll post a picture of that online or whatnot. Let's see, what else did I do? Definitely walked around a lot, took a lot of photos, took a lot of video. I actually met 2 people that I knew. I met one YouTuber that I had been watching for years, thought he was a pretty awesome dude. And apparently that was his first time going to PlayStation Experience too. And I actually was able to meet a Facebook friend of mine that I had never met before named Frederick. He was a pretty cool dude. We hung out for like at least 2 or 3 hours. So if you're seeing this video, Frederick, thanks for being the first Facebook friend I've ever actually met at a convention. When I had time, I think on the second day, I did go to one of the Capcom Fighter Cups. I think I went to the Marvel vs. Capcom. And it was actually a pretty interesting experience. I think I went to the Capcom Cup last year, but I think this one was better. It had a much better display. I was surprised how short it was. And there was also another conference that they had for Ghost. I think that's what it's called. And it was basically just the developers talking about why they did, like, it was from a Sucker Punch. And they were pretty much explaining why they decided to, you know, go with a samurai story and didn't want to do another Infamous. And I thought their reasoning for it was pretty good. They said that, you know, they had already done Infamous before. They had pretty much mastered it. There wasn't really anywhere they could go with it. Maybe they'll do another Infamous game. I would like to see one, but they want to challenge themselves. And even as a gamer, as much as I would have loved to see another Infamous game, I absolutely respect the decision. And when this game, when you're playing this total in Future Japan comes out, I definitely want to give it a try. Let's see, what else did I do? They had a pretty good food court that was, you know, pretty tasty, some pretty good food there. But outside of that, that was really about it. But but most of my time there for both days was just doing a lot of walking around, because with all the reservations being completely filled out, there wasn't really too many games you could play. And so I ended up just maybe playing a couple of the indie games multiple times, which, you know, some of them were good, some of them weren't really that interesting. But overall, I would say that my PlayStation experience was definitely a solid one, but it just did have some problems. Hopefully they will get these fixed Next year, I absolutely am planning on going to PlayStation Experience 2018. I don't know if it's going to be in Anaheim, but if it's not, I would really like to take somebody with me. I have always wanted to take someone with me to go to one of these conferences. I think it's going to make filming, taking pictures, and even playing games a lot better. So with that, that is pretty much my PlayStation Experience 2017 video in a nutshell. I would like to know if you guys have any more questions that you would like me to answer or give you advice about, if you guys are interested in going to PlayStation Experience next year, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, feel free to like, comment down below, and please subscribe to check me in my future videos. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.